Hi, I'm Tyson with Adventure Rig, and right now we're sitting inside of one of our adventure rigs. This is a 2010 Ford E350 Great West Class B camper van. And why we're sitting inside of here is because I want to talk to you about the tuner right here. So when we bought this van, I noticed that it just did not have much grunt. And so I contacted 5 Star Tuning out in South Carolina, and they sent me a tune for this engine. Now what we have under the hood is the V8. It's a 5.4 liter, and this van comes in at about 7,000 pounds empty. That's because it's fully built out. It has a lot of wood throughout it. It's just not a very light van. Once Callie and I put all of our stuff in here for a trip and then hook a small trailer to it, we're grossing around 10,000 pounds. Now we bought this in the Midwest. We drove it out there a little bit first before coming out here to Colorado. And in the Midwest, it wasn't a horrible experience. It definitely seemed like it was lagging, but it wasn't that bad. Once we got to the mountains though, that's where we really felt it. And we knew that we were gonna be putting some miles on the van, and we didn't really like how it was driving prior to installing the 87 tow tune that 5 Star Tuning sent us. What I was kind of seeing with the van prior to the tune is it just seemed like it was lagging. The shift points weren't really what I thought would be an ideal point to shift. So when we'd start going out, you push on the accelerator and it would just kind of start going, and then it seemed like it would shift early. And so when it would shift down into the next gear, it almost seemed like it was too early and it was lugging the engine. And so I really wanted to correct that, but I didn't want to put a ton of horsepower to this. I just wanted to try to change the shift points, as well as if we gain some horsepower, that's great, but really we wanted longevity out of this van. We took it up to the Pacific Northwest on our first trip, and then on our second trip, we took it down to Mexico. I definitely did not want to break down in Mexico. Once we installed the 87 tow tune on here, it was an absolute night and day difference. Now, we put about 3,000 miles on the van prior to the tune, and we put about another 7,000 miles on the van after installing the tune on it. When I first installed the tune, we were in Oregon, and we were sitting at a gas station. It was late at night. I was fueling up, and that was the first time that I installed the tune on it. Immediately when I left the gas station, literally pulling from the gas pump to the exit of the gas station, I told Callie that I could immediately feel a difference in the van. And it wasn't so much that it felt like it had all this horsepower, but the throttle response was drastic. So when I would start to step on the throttle, I mean, the van would just instantaneously kick in and it felt like it wanted to go. I was extremely pleased right away with it. Once we started towing with it, we put some miles under the van with the tune on it. I was so impressed with it, and it's something that I would not want to drive the van again without. If we get a different van or another vehicle that's heavy like this, or we're towing, I definitely want to get a 5 Star tune on it because of the differences that we noticed. As far as fuel mileage goes, it was kind of pretty consistent across the board prior to the tune. It seemed like we would get 11 to 13, and that's kind of just where it'd always be. 13 when we weren't loaded, 11 when we were loaded towing in the mountains. Once we put the tune on it, I started to see a much bigger range of what I was getting for fuel mileage. It would still go down to 11, but I was getting all the way up to 15 at times, and that I'd never seen prior to the tune. Now, something to keep in mind is I was using 85 octane fuel before putting the tune on, and then because it was an 87 octane tune, I didn't want to go below that. So I started filling up with 87 at that point. So that's maybe a wash because the increased cost of fuel, even though I'm getting a little bit better fuel mileage, I'm spending a little bit more on fuel. Again, it may be a wash. However, for me, even if it was a wash or if I'm spending a little bit more money, I still like the drivability of the van. It is so much easier to drive. It feels like it wants to move. It doesn't feel like I'm lugging the engine. It doesn't feel like it doesn't want to go up mountain passes. It literally just drives a heck of a lot better. And so sitting in this seat, driving through Mexico with the van feeling like it wants to drive, it makes me feel a lot better. Now, the unit that I ended up getting with the tune is made by SCT, and this is the X4. Why I like this is because it has gauges on the tuner itself, so I can see things such as how much battery voltage I have, or what my engine coolant temperature is. Honestly, for me, the engine coolant was probably the most important one that I wanted to watch. And what I noticed is I thought having a little bit more horsepower in the mountains, I would see maybe a little bit of a coolant increase in temperature. However, I didn't see anything. It stayed exactly where it is prior to the tune and after the tune. The coolant never moved. It always sits at about 190 to 195 is kind of where I normally see it. The other one I like to see is the intake air temperature. And then it also has a lot of other gauges that you can choose from. So right now, how I have it set up, I've got 6 different gauges that I can currently read on it. However, you can change this screen into different formats. So if you want one large one in the center that you always concentrate on, you can do that. Again, you can play around with it, but it does offer a multitude of different settings so you can look at different gauges however you want. Also, it will read and clear engine codes, which is always great because we did have an engine code show up in Mexico and it was for a piece of emissions equipment. That got replaced. I was able to then shut the code off. The install of the tune is really straightforward. They sent me the unit here and it did not come loaded prior with a tune. What I did is actually plugged it into the OBD2 port underneath the steering wheel here, and it read the ECU strategy code off of the vehicle. I then sent that code back to 5-Star Tuning in an email, and within the day, they had sent me my tune. I then loaded it onto this tuner, plugged it into the van, hit a button on the tuner, and it downloaded onto the van. Very easy to do. It probably took about 10 or 12 minutes for it to get all the way 100% downloaded on the van. But at that point, the tune was good, the van was good, everything was solid. We were ready to rock and roll. Now, if you want to go back to stock, you can do that as well. It's a very simple process. Again, inside of the tuner itself, it allows you to do that. If you're feeling like your vehicle is a little bit underpowered or you're looking for a little bit more performance out of it, I would highly recommend checking out 5-Star Tuning. Also, it's not just for this engine in this van. They have a lot of different tunes out there for many different makes of vehicles as well as different engines. Get on their website, check them out. I think you'll be very happy that you did. Their customer service is top notch. If you have any problems with this or you can't figure out how to download something, they are always just a phone call away and ready to help. Also, something else that is pretty cool is that they do offer tunes for life. So if I were to replace the intake on the van or put a different exhaust on it, if I went through either them or one of their dealers to purchase that intake or exhaust, they will then send me a new tune at no additional cost because I've upgraded some aftermarket parts on the engine. Again, the tune that I got for this van was the 87 tow tune from 5-Star Tuning. If you guys have any questions about this, please leave them in the comments section below and I'll get back to you. Also, if you're wondering where we are or what we're up to, check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Also, if you guys found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up as well as hit the like button. Thanks again for watching. I'm Tyson with Adventure Rig.